Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It could be anywhere on the internet, but you are here with me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are far too kind. Now, you're here because you've come to the realization that you need to make a change, physically and mentally, and you're trying to figure out different ways of doing that. And that's great that you've come to that realization, but thoughts are one thing, but actions are everything. So take that realization and then follow through. And watching this webinar is a great first step. This session today is going to last about 20-25 minutes, give or take. And we're going to talk through a different range of topics. First up, we're going to start off with our why, or my why, and identity. And we're going to talk about your identity and how that is critical to everything that you're trying to achieve. We're going to talk about nutritional psychology and how what you eat is more key to everything that you're trying to do than you perhaps realize. And we're going to talk through sleep and how that's an underrated and underutilized way to supercharge everything that you're trying to achieve. And then we're going to talk about different ways of training and the most efficient way of getting you to where you want to get to. Okay? Hopefully you're sitting comfortably, and if so, let's get cracking. It is my central belief that when you love something, you have the obligation to make that thing as best as it can possibly be. So, that being said, I love myself, and I think you should do the same. You should love yourself too, because loving yourself is where everything begins. If you don't love yourself, then you cannot love other people, you cannot love what you do, and if you don't love what you do, you can't really achieve anything great. So, regardless of anything that you want to do, any physical change, any mental change that you want to accomplish, everything starts with loving yourself. And to that end, I am obsessed with self-improvement. I want to make myself as best as I can possibly be in everything I do. And my mission is to help the world do the same, starting with you. And that's mind, body, and soul. Listen, the perfect finished article is an unattainable myth. It just doesn't exist. There's always better, more efficient ways of doing something. So that peak wellness, that peak performance that everyone's striving for, that you might be striving for, that's a forever moving target that's constantly moving away from you. Now, with that realization, chasing something can drive you crazy if it's constantly moving away from you and you never reach it. Which is why we find beauty in the process. And the central theme of everything that we're going to go through today is progress over perfection. Let me say that again. Progress over perfection. So this is one of the big takeaways from today's session. Continuous micro improvements over a long period of time. Day after day, week after week, year after year. That is the foundation, and that is the key to sustained high level performance. In order to be able to do that, you will need something called a growth mindset. What is a growth mindset? You might be familiar with the concept, but I'm going to give you the definition straight from the horse's mouth. And this is from Carol Dweck, who came up with the original concept. In a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the glory of the outcome, but I firmly believe the beauty is in the process. The beauty is in the journey. When you're trying to achieve something, you're going to have good days, bad days, highs and lows. It's just how life works. On those bad days, how do you get through them? You sucked that particular day. Okay, that's too bad. So you sit down, you analyze it, you learn from it, make the necessary adjustments, and then you come back and you make tomorrow better than it was today. And on the good days, oh, you crushed it, you nailed it. Fantastic. But same, you sit down, you analyze it, you learn from it, you make any necessary adjustments, then you come back and you try and make tomorrow better than you were today. No matter how good you are, or how well or how badly things might be going, there is always an opportunity to be better. And tomorrow is another opportunity to be 1% better than you were today. Continuous micro improvements over a long period of time. Does this sound like you? Or does it sound like somebody that you want to become? If the answer to either of those questions is yes, then you're in the right place. Keep watching, and we're going to go through different ways of how to do that over a long period of time. And then if you do that, you are going to get results that you have never dreamed of before. Buckle up. It is really time to make a difference. Everybody needs inspiration. It's what propels us to do greater things than we would otherwise aspire to do. Inspiration for this particular talk and everything that we're going to talk about, that comes from sport and great athletes. At its best, sport is a reflection of the best part of all of us. And seeing as we're in the business of making ourselves the best version of ourselves, then who better to learn from? Make sense? This approach to physical and mental training is inspired, like I said, is inspired by sports and great athletes. And we take those lessons and we use them to apply that to our daily lives. Above all, as you're watching this, you have to recognize that every single one of you is a multi-dimensional individual. And our mental wellness and your personal mental wellness is as, if not more important than your physical. A lot of people neglect that part of it. And the world's top performers, they don't. And as you go through this particular session, you'll realize, having learned from them, I don't either anymore. And now, hopefully, neither will you. You want to know the 7 daily habits that every top athlete and every top performer regardless of industry, the 7 daily habits that they observe and you should be adopting as well? If you do, stick around to the end of this particular video and I'll send them to you. We've briefly touched on the importance of the mental game, but let's dig a little deeper, because you're gonna realize that honestly, that is literally the whole ball game. Why am I banging on about this? Surely everyone knows that all you need to do is get in the gym, stop eating crap, and voila, Bob's your uncle. Sure. It's gonna say, nah, it's not it, but sure. On a fundamental level, that is it. That is as simple as it can be. But why doesn't everybody do that? Surely if it was that simple, everyone would do it. In the same way that everyone knows that smoking's bad for you, but yet millions of people still smoke. Why is that? Now, aside from the ridiculously addictive chemicals that they put in cigarettes, it all boils down to the identity of smokers. their identity is somehow wrapped up in the act of smoking, which is why it's so hard to give up. In the same way, your personal identity right now is tied up to a lifestyle that is not allowing you to live and be and perform at your best. Your thoughts become your habits, and your habits become your life. Ever wondered why it's common and unsurprising for retired athletes to fall into depression and get out of shape after they retire? Very quickly, their behavior changes, and in some cases spirals way out of control. Joe Calzaghe, Ricky Hatton, Lamar Odom, and countless others. I can go on and on and on. It's a very, very common thing. They've all kind of struggled with that kind of post-career transition. How does someone who possesses the discipline, the determination, and the drive to succeed at the highest level all of a sudden lose that control and do a complete 180? One word: identity. For most of their adult lives, and some of them from, in fact, their whole life, from their teenagers all the way through. For most of their adult lives, professional athletes have their identities tied up into being that man or woman in the arena. For so many of them, their self-worth and sense of who they are is tied up to being that specific person or that specific aspect of their life. So when the curtain closes and the lights dim for the final time and the crowd stop cheering, a lot of them struggle with that reality, because outside of that specific aspect of their life or that specific context, they have no idea about who they are as a person. Our identity shapes and dictates everything we do. What you do tomorrow is a mirror image of the type of person you feel you are today. Whether that's consciously or subconsciously, that is a psychological fact. If you don't believe you are the type of person who can achieve the goals that you have set out for yourself, then there is absolutely nothing that is going to make you consistently take the actions you need to take in order to achieve them. And the reason a lot of people run into problems with achieving goals or making any kind of change is because they don't tackle that particular level of it. They neglect that part. And they attack the problem backwards. They start off with the outcome: oh, I want to lose weight, so therefore I need to do this, and this, without going to the deepest level, which is the identity. And here's what I mean. This particular method was popularized by Simon Sinek and adapted by James Clear. There are 3 levels of behavioral change: outcomes, processes, and identity. Outcomes, that's the level about what you get, and that's the surface level that most people kind of settle on. Processes, this is more about what you do, and people touch on this as well. And identity, that's the level that most people don't get to. This is the deepest level. And this is more about your beliefs, your self-image, your judgments about yourself, and your judgments about other people. You see, if you want to learn how to commit to your goals in the long term, First, you have to develop an identity that drives the behaviors you need to achieve them. Anything else is just playing yourself and setting yourself up for disappointment. What you see in the mirror comes from the mind and not the body. Nutritional psychology is probably a term that you may not have heard of, but it's the science that studies how what you eat affects how you feel. And I'm not talking about when you eat a big meal and all of a sudden afterwards you want to take a nap. No, although that's a part of it. That's not specifically what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is the science of the choice between a burger or broccoli, and how the difference between those two foods can affect how you deal with stress and literally how you see life and how you behave. Did you know that 90% of your body's serotonin receptors, they're located in the gut? Think about that. That literally means that what you put in your mouth affects how you view your life. Now, in the same way that you can't out-exercise a bad diet, you can't also out-eat or eat your way out of depression or feeling anxiety or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is the results are in, and what you eat not only affects how you look, but it has a drastic impact on how you feel psychologically. Now we've established that, we're about to grab the third rail in fitness and performance, and that's nutrition. Everyone's got an opinion, and there's no right or wrong answer. There are guiding principles, and we'll come on to that in a sec, but there is no right or wrong answer. And you've probably heard the questions, you probably have the questions right now. Oh, what is the best diet? Or, yo, I want to get jacked, so what should I eat? Or, I want to lose weight, or what's the best food for fat loss, or the best diet for fat loss? Fact of the matter is, there isn't an answer to any of those questions. There is no best diet. There is no magical food that's gonna get you jacked. And there is no magical food plan or milkshake or anything that is going to burn fat for you. Just doesn't exist. It is complicated. If you are dealing with people, there is no cookie cutter, one size fits all solution that works for everyone. There isn't a magic meal plan. There isn't a failure proof macro split. And there is no magical food that is going to get the solution to work for you. Because what works for you may not necessarily work for me, and what works for me may not necessarily work for the next person. Okay? There are guiding principles though, that hold true for everybody. Whether you are keto, vegan, veggie, paleo, or whatever, there are guiding principles that will get you closer to where you want to get to. Guiding principle number 1. If you are looking to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. Simple as that. You have to burn more calories than you intake. Number 2, if you want to gain weight, if you want to gain muscle mass, you want to build muscle, you want to get jacked, you have to be in a calorie surplus. You have to intake more calories than you burn. And guiding principle number 3, whether you are keto, whether you are a vegan, whether you are a veggie, carnivore, paleo, whatever type of eating plan you subscribe to, or whatever type of nutritional methodology you subscribe to, you have to stop eating or limit the amount of crap that you eat. And crap is an acronym that I use, and it stands for, and it's made up of carbonated, refined, artificial, or processed food. Crap. Limit the amount, regardless of what you are trying to achieve, limit the amount of crap you eat. And those are the only 3 guiding principles that are true for whatever type of eating plan that you are under. Otherwise, you are talking about 7 billion different people who each have 7 billion different hormonal makeups, and a one-size-fits-all nutrition plan does not necessarily work, or does not necessarily give every single person who tries that particular plan the same results. Simple as that. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to achieve, you need to ask yourself, or you need to be able to answer these 2 overriding questions. Can you consistently eat the right foods in the right amounts to achieve the goal that you've set out for yourself? And secondly, do you have a healthy enough relationship with food that will allow you to do that? Speaking of healthy relationships, how good is your relationship with sleep? The reason I ask you this is because sleep is the cheapest, most effective way of supercharging your wellness. Don't believe me? Here's a quote from sleep expert Professor Matthew Walker. Sleep is probably the greatest legal performance-enhancing drug that few athletes are abusing enough. Now, this doesn't only apply to athletes, but anyone who is required to perform at a high level physically or mentally for a sustained period of time. And yes, that includes you. Your performance in your day-to-day work and school life actually suffers when you don't prioritize your well-being. That's a quote from sleep crusader Arianna Huffington. You're probably thinking, okay, yeah, I know, get a good night's sleep. It's not hardly revolutionary. And you're right, it isn't revolutionary. The problem is, it's very hard to sell sleep as a solution, which is why people don't necessarily really talk about it. But like I said, it is the cheapest, most effective way of supercharging everything that you are trying to achieve. What are the major benefits? The major one is your speed of recovery. When you get a good night's sleep, that speed of recovery is increased a hell of a lot. We will have busy, demanding schedules. We will have busy, demanding lives, in fact. And our ability to navigate all of those demands for a sustained period of time and not burn out while we do it, that is highly dependent on how much quality rest we can get. So let's get into some specifics. What are the numbers behind it? What are we talking about? I'm talking about increased speed of recovery and all the rest of it. But okay, what is that going to bring you? Okay, the major benefit, the number one benefit that you are going to get from a good sleep regime is your time to physical exhaustion is 30% higher, which means you don't get tired as quickly, meaning you can go longer for 30% more than your nearest competitor who doesn't have the same sleep regime that you do. Meaning that's 30% more output, 30% better production, or 30% more production, and therefore 30% more chance for you to separate yourself from the chasing pack. 2, your peak muscle strength is higher. This one is pretty self-explanatory. You recover 30% quicker, therefore you have 30% more capacity to work, 30% more opportunity to work. And therefore, that increased training and that increased work that you put in means your peak is increased by the same factor. 3 and 4, because these are intertwined, your ability to exhale CO2 is higher, and your ability to intake oxygen is also higher. We all have a good idea of how our body works. We intake oxygen, we exhale CO2. And how effectively we do those two processes is an indication of how efficiently our body is working. Better efficiency, better rate of working, and therefore better output and better production, and so on and so on. With a good sleep regime and with a better sleep regime, the ability to do those two processes is a lot higher. Therefore, our body is working a lot more efficiently, and therefore the work, not just the work, the amount of work that we do, but the quality of the work that we do is a lot better. And 5, last but not least, your ability to perspire is better. Again, linked to points 3 and 4 about the efficiency of how your body is working. This is more about how your body regulates your temperature. Therefore, we don't overheat, and therefore we can work efficiently for a lot longer because we're not moving out that far out of our comfort zone. And these 5 effects that I've listed, these aren't just static benefits that you get at one period of time, or one point in time, sorry. These are compounded over time. Consistent quality sleep forms a foundation for sustained high performance. And that is a foundation that is built up over a long period of time. All in all, a great sleep routine can be the difference between you hitting a PB in the gym or in a race, and also nailing that promotion. Or on the flip side, if you don't prioritize your wellness, starting with your sleep routine, that could possibly be the difference between you never fulfilling the potential that you have in any arena and never hitting the goals that you've set for yourself. Now we've come to the final topic. If you remember at the top of this, we talked about identity, processes, and outcomes, correct? 3 levels of behavioral change. Well, everything we've talked about up until now, that's been kind of dealing with mainly the first 2 levels. Your identity and processes and how you should go about getting the outcomes. Training is the overlap between the final 2 levels, between the processes and the outcomes, because that is what is directly responsible for what you see in the mirror, or is most responsible for what you see in the mirror. Everything else we've talked about is the foundation for what you're about to physically do, getting you in the position to physically do what you're trying to achieve. Now, the burning question that you probably have is, what is the best exercise or the best way of training in order to increase your performance, or in order to get towards the goals that you set out for yourself? Well, fact of the matter is, it's complicated, and that's not me trying to hedge myself, or me not trying to take a position or anything like that. Again, like I was talking with the nutrition and what have you before, whenever you're dealing with people, and we are all individuals, whenever you're dealing with people, there is no cookie cutter solution. So it is complicated because humans are complicated. And the fact of the matter is, the best way to train your body to improve performance is solely dependent on context. Your situation and your circumstance will be different to the next person. So a solution that works for the next person won't necessarily work for you. And that situation and that circumstance, they have a huge bearing on how you should be training in order to maximize your chances of getting to where you want to get to. What equipment do you have available? How often are you training? How experienced are you? How much time do you have? And how physically capable are you? And everything I've just named, they can change from one day to the next. So now you're beginning to see that the answer to that particular question that might sound like a simple, straightforward question, oh, okay, do this, this, and this, and then you'll get these results. No, it's not that simple. It really isn't, and it never has been. And anybody who tells you that it is, they're lying to you. Now, I stress all of this to say that because those situations and those circumstances change from a day-to-day basis, that doesn't mean that there's nothing you can do, obviously. And that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a method to how you attack it. What I'm saying is that tactics, just like with a football team going to play a specific team at a different ground or whatever the occasion is, tactics probably change from game to game, from day to day, week to week. But the guiding principles and the identity of the team, that never changes. Example, a Pep Guardiola team or a Jurgen Klopp team, you know they're going to play a certain way regardless of the opposition. The players may change, the tactics may change, how much they press, how much they sit back, how much position they have, yada yada yada. That will change depending on the opponent. But the style of play, the identity, and their guiding principles and what they're trying to achieve, that never changes, regardless whether they're home and away, playing somebody at the top of the league, bottom of the league, whatever. That's who the team is, and that is how they attack problems. Therefore, you should have the same. You should have guiding principles to how you attack your training and how you should go about trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And they should fall under two main guiding principles, okay? Number one, you should be focused on functional movements. Functional, athletically focused exercises that move across your body's natural movement patterns. And what do I mean by that? Your body has multiple different muscles in it, multiple limbs that are all interconnected, and they were designed that way, and they were designed to move together, not in isolation. Therefore, if you are trying to increase the performance of those muscles, if you're trying to train them to work better, then it is better to train them to move in the way that they were designed to move, and not train them in isolations. Therefore, compound exercises used at the proper time, again, situation and circumstances. Compound exercises, which are exercises that use more than one joint for you to perform that particular exercise. For example, a barbell squat or a barbell lunge, or so on and so on, a power clean. Exercises like that use more than one body joint for you to be able to perform the exercises, and that move across your body's natural movement patterns, whether it be a push, pull, squat, lunge, hinge, etc., etc. Those are the exercises that are going to give you the most time effective and the most time efficient workout, and give you the most bang for your buck. 2, as I've said, if you are trying to get the most time effective workout, you should be focusing on functional compound exercises. And as a consequence, you shouldn't really be working on isolated muscle sessions. Now, you're probably thinking, huh? But I've seen hundreds of the memes about leg days and skipping leg days and what have you. And yes, what I'm saying is counter-intuitive and counter to what you would be used to seeing on Instagram or YouTube. And there's a reason for that. Most of the people that you see on Instagram, most influencers, most practitioners, whatever, they have come from a bodybuilding background. And largely speaking, most data that is out there, most science-based or evidence-based research out there comes from a bodybuilding standpoint. Now, bodybuilders, those men and women, they are normally in the gym 5 to 6 times a week. On that kind of cadence, it is necessary. Not even to the point where you can afford to get isolated in your strategy. It's actually a necessity to be able to give your body time to recover in between sessions. So then you can afford to, or it's more to the point, it's imperative that you work on a leg day, a back day, a shoulder day, etc., etc. That increases your capacity for work, increases the amount of stress that you put on the muscles, and therefore you get the adaptation a lot higher, a lot quicker. Therefore you get the bigger muscles and so on and so on, which is what they're trying to do. But to make that a time effective and a time efficient workout, you'll be in the gym 5 to 6 times a week. Most of you watching this video, you will be struggling to get to the gym between 2 and 4 times a week on a consistent basis. Most of you will be once a week, twice a week, if you're lucky, on a consistent basis. Now, on that particular cadence, you would not be getting the most time efficient. You would not be using your time as efficiently as possible if you now start focusing on isolated muscle groups. So you go into the gym and you do one leg day workout, and then you don't go to the gym for another week, and then you come back the next week and you do a shoulder workout, then you don't go to the gym for another week, and then you come back and you do a back workout and you don't go to the gym for another week. You can see how that's not necessarily going to get you to where you want to get to. Okay, so that being said, again, there are guiding principles, and what I would recommend that you do is follow a similar cadence to this. If you're going to the gym once or twice a week, full body workouts all the way. Upper and lower body, push, pull, get all of those movement patterns ticked off in those particular sessions. Same thing with 3 times a week. Full body across all the movement patterns. Get your body moving in a functionally athletic way. 4 times a week, this is where we can start playing around with our periodization and playing around with what we do in those particular sessions. So 4 times a week, now you can start splitting up movement patterns. Again, you still probably want to be working full body, but this is where you can say, okay, fine, on a Monday I'm going to do a push workout, on a Tuesday I'm going to do pull, for example. and then on a Wednesday I'm going to take a break. Then on Thursday I'm going to come back in. I'm going to do another push session, and then on a Friday I'm going to do a pull session, and then you rest on Saturday and Sunday. Now all of a sudden you cover off all your base. You cover your bases, and you get a little bit more specific on certain exercises, and you still give yourself time to recover. That's only when you're actually getting into the gym a consistent four times a week. And then from 5 times upwards, 5, 6, 7, that's when you can start going crazy, and then you can really get isolated and start working on specific muscle groups. Then I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, seeing as unless bodybuilding is something that you want to attack. If you are literally trying to train just to live your best life and be better looking and just be more efficient in terms of your movement, I would still recommend that you work full body and work getting your body moving in an athletically focused way. That's all that we have for today. Thank you for making your way through this particular video, and thank you for taking the time out today. I'm really curious to hear what you think, so please drop a comment below, or drop an email, and let's start a conversation about what you liked and what you didn't like, and how we can actually add more value to upcoming webinars and upcoming videos. And if you've gotten any type of value from it, then please share it with somebody who you also think would gain some value from it, and let's actually spread the word out and get this content out to as many people who would benefit from it as possible. So thank you again for taking your time out and making your way through the whole video, and thanks again, and we'll be in touch. Talk soon.